there's a bill going to be to Congress here pretty quick relative to pensions for MMA athletes and a subset of very similar to the Ali Act. And it's going to be introduced to the United States House of Representatives here pretty soon.
The AllStar app, the #1 app in the business. UFC, Bellator, One Championship, PFL, and more. Get the app right now. Link in description. The first thing I wanted to jump into is PFL, man. They've been announcing these matchups for the regular season. Aspen Ladd, have they announced anything? Can you give us any kind of clue, any info?
So they have it. She is fighting in April, obviously in Vegas on one of those dates, on the main card, of course. But outside of that, I can't really say much because the contract hasn't been signed, all that stuff as far as who's she fighting and all that kind of stuff. But yes, she will be fighting in April in Las Vegas at the new Virgin Hotel and Casino there, where I think the UFC is doing their first show there on the 11th of March. So same location. So yeah,
her debut, man, a solid win right there.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a fight where there is zero excuses in the way things kind of go down over the last couple of years for her and all that kind of stuff. And she's never made any excuse either, right? Like the one thing I'll say though is she's got back to or very close to who Aspen Ladd really is, right? And some of that was shown, and I think come April, it'll be the Aspen Ladd that everyone's really known, like 100% of that, right? Like Julia Budd obviously is one of the best female featherweights on the planet, right? Like she's a 5-time defending world Bellator champion. And over the last course of several years, her only loss was to Chris Cyborg, right, by TKO in the 4th round, right? So it took a long time for Cyborg to get her out of there, but it was definitely a fight I think Aspen could have finished her, and she had opportunities to do so, just didn't quite get there. But it was a very solid performance, like you said, and it was good to kind of just see her back on track and back to being happy, right, and back to kind of feeling herself.
And sometimes as a fighter, you just need to get the win, right? Like that's the most important thing, is to get that, shake the cobwebs out a little bit, right? Start fresh.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about people, and we're talking about Aspen right now, who's, which a lot of people don't even realize is Aspen Ladd's the only UFC athlete to have fought a ranked opponent in every single fight from her debut to her last fight in the UFC. No one else has done that. She fought a ranked opponent every single fight, top 15, top 10, or top 5 opponent in every single UFC fight. So, she ain't no stranger, right? Like she just needed to get back on track. And she did. And, the thing is there were other offers, initially when PFL was kind of coming out. And she wanted the best possible person that she can fight. The best. And, hey, Julia Budd is one of those, right? And she showed well. She had fun. She's back to kind of feeling herself and being healthy. It was awesome. It was great to see. It was a blessing. And I know she's extremely excited for April.
Anthony Hernandez, man, last time we saw him was in September. He seems like he's training. When can we see him back?
Yeah, we actually just got the call today. I can't really say who it is yet because tomorrow we actually go into renegotiations of his contract and such. He hasn't fought since that September time because he tore ligaments in his thumb again and had to have all kinds of different procedures done. So, yeah, he was recently cleared. He will be fighting in May. I'll say that. It actually just came in 20 minutes ago. So it's a big name. Let's say that it'll be a big fight.
Yeah. I can't wait to see what's next for Hernandez and Max. Max, man, he had that hand injury. He got the surgery.
Same thing. They had identical injuries, right? Max's was a little bit different, where the tears in his thumb were a little bit different because where it was at, his thumb wouldn't hold itself, so it just fall out of place. So he actually went in for surgery, got it fixed. My guess is we might be getting a text here very soon relative to him too, because he's on about the same timeline. So he might be fighting in May as well. Maybe the same card. You never know.
It's always good to have like two or three of the guys fighting around the same time, right? Both of them in camp together.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have Trey Williams, who just signed with the PFL. He's one
Mhm.
of our 205ers. He'll be fighting in March in Orlando for the PFL. And so, yeah, they're all kind of around the same time. So it's good.
Who else do you have fighting soon?
Andrea Lee is fighting March 25th
Okay.
in Texas. Um, yeah, that's all of
Who
them.
who's she fighting?
Maycee Barber.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's a good match, man. What do you think about that fight?
Well, I tell you what, if Andrea Lee just comes out and is that KGB, she's better everywhere than Maycee. Maycee's a dog and she's very tough, right? And all those types of things. But technique for technique, Andrea is really, really sharp. And if she comes out and stays within herself and just does what Andrea Lee can do, she should show very well.
Yeah, I can't wait for that fight. That fight's a very, very solid matchup. And just recently, at UFC 284, we saw Jimmy Crute and Alonso Menefiel fight in the pay-per-view. And in the third round, Crute went for a takedown and Menefiel grabbed the fence. And then the referee took a point away immediately, something that we rarely see. And I feel like referees give too many warnings for certain fouls.
100%, dude. Like the thing is in the back, the ref will tell us in the back, look, this is your hard warning, right? So they shouldn't be giving him leeway when they're in the cage and they grab it. I get it. It affects my fighters too, right? But look, we know what the rule is. They tell us this is our hard warning before you go out there. We're taking a point. So they should hold up to that, right? Like, because it does and it can change the outcome of a fight.
Well, that fight was a draw because of it, that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what are other, do you think, fouls? Like, what fouls could you give warnings for? I'm pretty sure, like, nut shots, of course, but is
Yeah,
there?
those aren't really hard warnings in the back, but the eye poke is typically a hard warning in the back. But sometimes you don't see them sticking to that hard warning during the fight. But I would say those two, right? Like the hands out, the eye poke thing, and the fence grab. That's typically in the back. They always give us hard warnings in the back. Like this is your warning. You will not get a warning if you do it in the fight. But um, yeah, I would say those two for sure. Nut shots. They're that one. I don't think it should be a hard warning because sometimes it's just, man, you didn't really mean to do it. You know what I mean? It just truly, you went, I threw something and you did, and we lined up right. You know what I mean? It's a little bit different, I think.
And also, the grabbing of the gloves as well and the shorts. We don't see it as much, but I'm pretty sure it's happening during fight.
Oh, it happens all the time. But the thing is those ones are so much harder to see, especially when you're on the mat, because you can hide under things and grab stuff. The guy's going to scream, hey, he's grabbing my gloves, but the ref can't really see it, right? So it's kind of hard to truly prove. Um, that one, too, would be for sure, if I could prove it, would definitely be, in my opinion, would be a point loss right away. But I'm not a ref, but it should be.
And another thing that's coming out of UFC 284 is the IV allegations and I think a lot of people didn't know what the rules were for the IVs, and now we're starting to get these details. Well, they were always out there.
Yeah, the thing is I mean, I've always known about that rule that you saw recently with Jeff Nowitzki putting out. It wasn't. I mean, I guess if people don't that have athletes in the UFC aren't paying attention, they wouldn't know. But I definitely know that rule. Now, the thing with it though, it's like 100 mLs or something, which is next to nothing, right? So now here's the thing though, like that doesn't mean that I can't prove anything, but that doesn't mean that Islam didn't get an IV, right, and get a liter or two. Um, and who knows? You know what I mean? I don't know where Hooker's coming up with that, but I mean, you never know. Here's the thing: if there's a system to cheat, a fighter's going to try to do so, right? Like, I'm not saying it's right, but they do. I mean, they just do. And for whatever reason, it always seems to be, I don't know, certain regions that seem to get popped more than others. I don't know.
Have you heard whispers about people taking IVs? Because it seems like certain things are coming out to the forefront now because of these allegations.
I haven't heard any whispers. I've been aware of the IV rule, but I haven't heard any whispers. My fighters haven't been involved in any of it as far as getting one, and then getting approved to get one by a doctor, and then having a doctor administer it, or an approved someone through USADA to administer it. But again, I have to venture to guess and believe that regardless of USADA, people are going to try. Which is why we keep seeing people getting popped, right? Like if there's a test out there, someone's trying to beat it, right? And especially in athletics, I mean, you see it in the Olympics, you see it, which is why Russia was banned for however long, right? In the Olympics, I mean, they were all getting tested through WADA and USADA, but they found a way to get around it, right? And my guess is someone's still also trying to get around it, right? Like it's
The hole in
just
the
is what.
wall. They used the hole in the wall to do it. That's wild, right? That's wild. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I mean, it's like weight cutting, right? I
yeah.
mean, in weight cutting, someone's always going to try to do something, right? Like it's just it is what it and until things are people actually come to the table and actually really can define the problem and find what the gaps are, like where our initial state is, where or our in our current state, where we're trying to go, and try to fill those gaps. I mean, we're going to continue to have the same challenges, in my opinion. But no one's ever really willing to sit down and say, okay, let's truly identify what the problem is. Everyone tries to throw these random things out and these solutions, but oftentimes we throw out solutions before we actually really truly know what the problem is, right?
And a lot of times it's uneducated solutions, right? It's just like solutions that you're
Yeah,
throwing at the wall.
yeah, yeah.
And another thing is Francis Ngannou leaving the UFC, man. How does that impact other fighters moving forward, do you think?
Well, I think that if I think it was the right thing, right? Francis did what he held on to his integrity as a man, right? And he held true to his word at what he has been trying to do, and held on true to what he said he would do, right? So you have to, I don't care who you are, you can hate him, you can, love the UFC, whatever that may be. The bottom line is you got to give the dude respect because he held on to true to what he said he was going to do. And I think it ultimately, if fighters start thinking outside the box a little bit, well, it can help them, right? Like him making that step to help him. And you heard Izzy coming out right recently and be like, hey, this is what we've been talking about. There's going to be, more to this, et cetera, right? So him being who he was in the current active UFC champion, that's a big thing, right? Um, where he goes is going to be interesting to see. And I know that there's, the PFLs and the talks, and I know that there's things that he wants to do both. And now with Jake Paul being part of the PFL and part owner of the PFL, right? You're talking about a guy that, I'm kind of going around a little bit, but those things all come together at some point, right? Like, and you never know what's going to happen. And with someone with that influential, with a Jake Paul tied to the PFL, and someone with such big as Francis Ngannou, you might see him there. You might see him box. You might see him at PFL. Who knows where he's going to go? But I think all in all, it could turn out to give fighters more opportunity, or at least be like, you know what, there is more opportunity out there. There is things that I can do, and not pigeonholing yourself so much, right? Like, and being so hell bent on I have to go to the UFC, right? Like, I don't think that whether the company was called, I don't know, a totally different name, wasn't that right? But when you put so much eggs in one basket, you sometimes don't get the full benefit of what you're trying to do, right? Like the UFC is still the UFC, right? That and it's awesome, right? But you have more opportunity now, right? Like you go and chase that. Whatever that opportunity is, go and chase it. And I think Francis is trying to help that.
Well, Aspen is doing the same thing as well in her own way, you know, finding her space.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, fighters need to. What are you fighting for, right? Are you? Because my guess is most fighters, if you were to ask them, well, I'm doing this because I want to make a living at it. I want to make a lot of money, right? I get that there's, I want to win the title, right? But the thing is that all brings monetary value to it. Fighters are still, at the end of the day, they're fighting because they want to get paid, and they want to get paid well. So if I have options, how is that bad? Right? If I have more opportunities and more abilities to make money in multiple places, why wouldn't I try to do that? Right? Like, it's just go where you want to go, but don't limit yourself. Right? Because not every show is going to want you, but maybe this show doesn't want you now, but this one does. All right, well, you have to take those things into consideration, right? And I think it's good. I mean, I'm just really curious, probably just like you and everyone else, to see what Francis actually does.
Yeah, and it's also important to have someone like a coach or a manager that's going to
Yeah.
see that, you know what I mean, in
You know
you.
what's funny? I'll share. I won't get into detail, but I have some really close friends who have become very also supporters of MMA Gold, and one of them is a very, very extremely well-known, probably the largest lobbying firm in the country and part of the legislative branch, right? There's a bill going to be to Congress here pretty quick relative to pensions for MMA athletes and a subset of very similar to the Ali Act, and it's going to be introduced to the United States House of Representatives here pretty soon. So I think there's a lot of things that are happening, right? Like, and change isn't bad. Sometimes it can be, right? But in this context, it might be good. There's a lot of things happening, and we'll see what happens.
That's exciting, man. I'm happy to hear that, man.
Yeah,
I'm happy to hear
a lot
that.
of people don't know that, but
Yeah.
fortunately, I'm friends with them, and yeah, I was given some of that information today, actually.
Hey Jim,
It
it's
is
always
true.
good, man, catching up with you. Thank you for the time, and yeah, man, all the best in the next couple of months, getting ready for these fights, man. Some big fights, and
Yeah,
PFL
can I
season.
say?
Yeah, yeah.
I just want to couple of guys that are fighting soon. I just want to give them shout outs, like Ryan Fearnow, one of our 205ers. He's main eventing one of the A1 shows here in California on February 25th. Derek Moon is on that card. Donnie Todd is on that card. Michael Bodkin's on that card. And then Aspen's brother, Shayler Ladd, will be headlining a March 25th show here in Lake Tahoe in Northern California, as well as Katarina Legareta on that card, Kelly McKay on that card, Luis Lopez on that card, Roberto Vela, one of our top 145ers coming up, Autumn Norton, one of our 135 females. I mean, just lots of stuff coming up. Things are stacking. So there's a lot of big fights for a lot of the regional guys coming up that have a lot of potential, and then of course the ones Aspen, Fluffy, Max, all of them fighting all at the same time. So it's a fun time at MMA Gold right now. Everyone's got fights coming up. It's a good vibe. I look forward to it.